Take me home. I need to see that light again. Take me home. I need to feel that sense of belonging. I want to feel that warmth again. Take me home. I need to know that sense of belonging.
I've lived away from Scotland for 13 years now, and I still think of Scotland as home. I don't think home's a place as such. I think it's more a feeling. I wrote a song, Take Me Home, which has got a line in it, something about coming home and having a sense of belonging. And I think it's a memory. It's a place in your heart rather than a place on a map. Up until I left Glasgow, I'd never actually come up here to Skye. It was one of those things. It's a classic, you know. If it's on your own doorstep, you never actually go and find out about it. When I moved away and went down to London and decided to come back up and spend a bit of time up here, that's when I discovered this place. I think it's just it's quite incredible. It's a pity I didn't discover it earlier, but I probably wouldn't have appreciated it earlier. There's a kind of tranquility here that you know, I can switch off. You know, I got a home in a small island in the Caribbean, and I thought that I'd be able to sort of switch off there, and it's not quite the same. There's something quiet and intimate about being up here. You don't feel like turning the television on up here, and you don't feel like, you know doing without. You just go for a walk and wander and let your mind clear. It's great. I miss the people. There's a character that mainly people in Glasgow have, which there's a sense of humour that seems to be lacking in London. London's a very, very cosmopolitan city, and there doesn't seem to be many Londoners left in there, because I think most Cockneys have had to move out and they all live in Milton Keynes and places like that. But no, there's a sort of camaraderie up here. There's a coziness in a way. I didn't really want to leave in the first place, and now that I'm a very responsible father, I think it was quite nice to have my daughter, you know, spend some time here in Scotland. That's important, I think. I mean, you know, she's got an English accent, which is bad enough, but I mean, the fact that she's actually living in London away from it and will probably spend most of her life there. So I want her to still try and maintain her background, her roots.
It's not big.
I can see some sand down
there. I was born in Cambuslang, and it was a very, it's supposed to be the biggest village in Scotland. It just looks a bit of a mess these days. But I mean, I remember it has been great fun. Although you know, my family had an elder brother and a younger sister, and my parents and I all lived in a room and kitchen. It was called, in a close, and I seem to remember it being great. But then you know, when you think back about it and, you know, talk to my parents about it, it was pretty grotty actually. You know, it was you know, there were sort of rats running underneath the floorboards and a little burn running under the floorboards as well. And the back garden, or whatever it was meant to be called, was like a sort of bomb site, you know, with dustbins in it and stagnant water from broken drains. But you know, through a kid's eyes, it was a wonderful place to be. I've got nothing but fond memories for it. I think there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to be a musician at some point. But I suppose, in a way, that was a fairy tale as well. It was totally unrealistic. You know, being a kid of like 7 or 8, you know, listening to the radio constantly. You know, we didn't have a record player or tape recorder or anything, so we just had the radio on all the time with no musical instruments in the house. I mean, the house wasn't big enough, I don't think. But it was always there. It was always, you know, my fantasy would be to, you know, go off and you know, earn a living by doing something that that you really wanted to do, as opposed to being stuck in a factory or driving a van like my dad did all his life. You know, it was always there, and I think I must have hounded my parents quite severely, because they had to scrape up the princely sum of £2 to buy me a second-hand guitar, which was an awful lot of money then, considering the fact that my parents, I think my dad was only making like £6 or £7 a week at the time. So it was quite a major effort for them. So I must have been going on about it for a long time, because that was a major commitment for them to make, you know, to buy me this thing, and they've regretted it ever since. School in Cambuslang wasn't particularly interesting. I don't seem to have very fond memories of that. Although I suppose now I probably liked it now more than I did at the time. My head was full of guitars and amplifiers and whatever. So I wasn't particularly brilliant at school. The only thing I was good at was art. So I came into my own when it came to having pictures of paintings stuck up on the wall. The school I went to in Cambuslang Primary School was directly opposite a Catholic school. The school I went to was a Protestant school. And my first sort of run-in with religion, or the kind of twisted religion that Glasgow seemed to have, was, you know, at school times, at play times, you'd be standing, you know, in your school, like along the fence, shouting abuse at the Catholic kids who were shouting abuse at you on their side, because the play times always mixed. You know, it was like, you know, Catholic dogs and, you know, I can't remember what it was now, but it was just ludicrous. And that's an inbred thing. I think that's part of a problem that I'd like to see disappear. I think it's not nearly as much a problem in Scotland as it used to be when I was a kid. But I thought that was all kind of normal, you know. You get stopped in the street and asked what football team you support, and of course it wasn't really asking you what football team you support, it was asking you what religion you were. And if you answered wrongly, probably if you answered anything, you got a smack in the mouth. And that was all pretty strange, but it seemed acceptable. I thought everywhere was like that. It wasn't until I actually moved away from Glasgow and spent a few years in London, then come back to Glasgow, that I noticed just how everyone was kind of bigoted in a certain way, you know, talking about, you know, Billies and Tims and, you know, football teams, and how Rangers would never have a Celtic player and vice versa. And I couldn't believe it. I thought it was very, very strange, especially the fact that I had new friends in London and I had no idea what religion they were. It didn't occur to me to ask.
Dear God, is there somebody out there? Is there someone to hear my prayer? I'm a simple man with simple words to say. Is there some point in asking for more? Only God is where we are today. Lost and alone and afraid. Give me love for the lonely. Give me food for the hungry. Give me peace in our restless world. Give me hope for the children. Give me a worldwide religion. Give me peace in our restless world.
I think a worldwide religion is totally impractical and very idealistic. But, you know, if I could have my way in an ideal world, I think it would solve an awful lot of problems. And most of the problems in the world are actually caused by religion. You know, one religion not agreeing with another religion, so they just go and fight about it, which I thought religion was against. I don't know. I mean, I just think the world would be a much better place if we all started worrying about things that affect us all as opposed to things that affect us as individuals. I'm not quite sure there's a God in the sense that we were told there was a God. I'm not sure there's some all-powerful being up there looking down on us that can intervene at any given moment. Because if that were true, I mean, He's had plenty of moments recently to intervene and hasn't. You know, again, it's all part of the, you know, the fairy tale. I just don't believe in that kind of all-powerful being. I'm saying in Dear God, basically, I mean, I wanted to put a point across, and I wanted to put it across in the most simple form, so I put it in the form of a child's prayer, but saying all the things that a child would say. When I played Dear God to my record company executives, the usual sort of stale atmosphere that there is when you're sitting there playing something you've spent, you know, a year putting your heart and soul into, and they sit there listening to it and analysing it, and they heard the track Dear God, and they said, yeah, the American guy said, yeah, this is a wonderful track, great song. It'll never be played on American radio. I said, well, why? He said, well, it's got God in the title. I said, yeah, but it's not blasphemous. It's not. It's just, you know, it's one view, one very simplistic view on what I think's wrong with the world. 3 months later, when the thing eventually was released in America, it was picked up in all sorts of places. I mean, it was played in, you know, Alabama, and, you know, it was played, you know, up in, coast to coast. It was played in the Midwest. It was played everywhere in stations in places that I'd never even heard of before. And the reaction that I got from it were quite incredible. I mean, it seemed that I was like a lost lamb, a lost soul wandering around America. I was inundated with pamphlets and leaflets and all sorts of bum-phone, you know, religions, a variety of religions, from Buddhism, from Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, Baha'i faith, and they were all trying to sort of tell me how they had gotten it right and every other religion was wrong, and maybe I should jump in with them because, you know, they felt the same way I did for a while until they discovered their religion. But I found, after reading some of the pamphlets and things, they were kind of like fanatical about what they were doing, and I find that quite frightening. If people are supposed to follow one particular thought, they should follow their own. Just follow your heart, you know, follow your feelings. And if people are what I think they basically are, and that's generally quite good, you know, they will eventually come to a point where everyone will be doing more or less the same things. You know, you'll be looking out for other people, you'll be aware of other people's plights and problems, and hopefully you'll be able to help on some level. I think if you can do that, you know, if there ever is a heaven, you know, or whatever heaven's going to be, I think you'll get in if you're basically good in your life, you know. I've changed slightly now that I'm a father. I mean, I have to think of the future, but not for my sake, for Molly's sake. I'm concerned for what kind of world she's going to find herself in. That's got nothing to do with religion. She was never christened. You know, I want her to choose what she wants when she's old enough to make a decision, and not, like me and like millions others, be born into something that you have no particular say on. Can you count to?
1, 2, 3.
Oh, that didn't go anywhere. Another one. Right across it. Oh, hit the castle this time. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Oh. You're getting worse.
High up on a hillside, a preacher tells a story to a crowd. He tells the same old story 1,000 times. He's read that story aloud. He wants to give the answers, but his words are only answers to nothing. Lying in my bedroom, a man comes on my TV with a grin. He tells me to believe him. He said that I should put my faith in him. He says he has the answers, but his words are only answers to nothing.
I'm quite lucky in a way, because I think I've got belief in myself, which a lot of people don't really have. I've got belief in my abilities. And I don't feel that I need an outside organisation or something else to guide me. I don't need a guiding light, whether it be religion or, you know, whether it be drugs, or whether it be whatever the driving force is that people need. You know, the camaraderie of having other people around you to give you strength to do things. Especially after being to America, I've seen some dreadful people on television. And it's all, I mean, I'm glad to say it's slightly changing, but not a lot. People, TV evangelists, which I just abhor. I couldn't believe seeing these people saying, you know, send me $20 and I'll save your soul, God will save your soul, God needs your money. And these people are massive, and they make millions of pounds a year by ripping people off in the name of religion. And that's just hideous. You know, I'm lucky enough that I don't need that. I don't think religion's got, you know, has cornered the market on people having to help other people. I don't think it's a particularly religious thing to do. Everyone says it's a Christian thing to do. It's not quite right. I think it's more a humane thing to do. I think there's something in all of us that doesn't like to see other people suffering, and it's just that element needs to be nurtured now and again. Because I do it myself. You know, you do dip your hand in your pocket and give some money. Maybe it doesn't redress the balance. It just makes you feel good for a while, and that's a selfish attitude. I did Band-Aid because I was asked. I must confess that if Geldof hadn't phoned me up the day after the initial documentary had been shown on television, I don't think I would have done anything. It's because he needed help. He wanted to do something. He didn't know quite what. I've always stated that I would never mix politics and music because it kind of waters down both. I think you end up with weak politics and probably dodgy music. But this was something entirely different to me. When we got together, we decided eventually to make a record. So we went off our separate ways for a couple of days. I wrote some bits of music and things that I thought would be apt. And Bob, although I didn't know it at the time, had sort of a half-finished song up his sleeve. And we got together with these two totally incompatible bits of music. And I spent 4 or 5 days piecing these bits together and rewriting and rearranging and doing whatever and recording the backing track while Bob got on the phone and bludgeoned people into coming along and doing the day that we all saw on television, you know, the actual recording of the vocals and the mixing of the record. And at that point I was in. Both feet were in at that point, and still are. The majority of the artists, in fact all the artists who were involved in the making of the record, didn't know what they were getting involved in. There was nothing else, nothing had been previous to that. I mean, there'd been nothing like that before. So I mean, with people flying in from New York, and from Ireland, and from Germany, especially to come and do this, to give their time at their own expense, to come and do this record. Live Aid was a phenomenon. It was something that will never happen again. I don't think. It was that the time was right, and that a world felt for a particular problem, and all got involved. It was just everything was right. You put all the elements together, and it happened. You could put all the same elements together tomorrow, and it just wouldn't work. So it got to the point that there'd be a major disaster, and you would see it on television and guess how long it was going to take before the phone rang. With someone asking you to put a record together or put a concert together. And the thing is, they just don't understand that a record is not the answer at all. You know, it's got to be something bigger than that. You know, people have to get involved without the incentive, without dangling a carrot. It's important that either Bob or I went, and he couldn't go because he was doing other bits and pieces involved with Band-Aid. It was important that one of us went, because if we didn't go, the cameras wouldn't go. And we knew it was of the utmost importance that those pictures and what was going on over there was still headline news. It was still a three-ring circus, basically, because that was the strength. You know, we were media people, and we could keep it in the public eye and try and do something about it. So I went with the first emergency flight of there was some trucks and high-protein biscuits and whatever medication. Flew over on a transporter plane and went out and arrived on the tarmac and things after a very rough night on the plane, and was greeted by a variety of people, and they took us to Addis Ababa, which gave me quite a surprise, because Addis Ababa is the capital of Ethiopia, and it's like any capital in the world. It's a city. Trains and buses, or maybe not trains, but trucks and buses, and people going to and from work, you know, like anywhere else in the world. And he took us to a Hilton hotel, air-conditioned hotel that you'd find in London or Miami or Glasgow, whatever. And there were people sitting there around the swimming pool having cocktails and lunch and things. And then they put us on a Land Rover, and we drove for 20 minutes to an aid camp, a small aid camp. It held just over 6,000 people. And it was night and day. It was just quite incredible. It was quite a good aid camp. A lot of the people I saw there were on the mend, and they said it was a good day because only 3 people had died that day. And it was the contrast, because I had expected to see what I saw in the aid camp, but I didn't expect to see people leading perfectly normal lives. It was definitely a them and us situation. It kind of annoyed me at first, thinking, well, why am I doing this? Why are the people in Britain and Ireland sort of donating money and caring about this, and they don't seem to. And then I just thought about it, and I thought, it's a them and us situation, just like we have a them and us situation here in Britain or in America, and those who have and those who haven't. But it just seemed that it was the situation over there that was different. The political situation, and the people who were dying were people who just weren't wanted. They weren't needed in the country. They had no use for the government. Served no purpose. So I think the fact that they were starving to death was probably doing them a favour, and I just felt sorry for them after that. I felt it quite pathetic that a bunch of pop stars sort of started something that led the way for a lot of people and to get involved, and the governments were lagging way behind, because it's, although the money that was raised seemed an awful lot of money, it's a drop in the ocean. We haven't got the power, and we're not in a position to generate the kind of money that is needed to make a serious difference. And that's why since then, the famine's returned. We knew it would, and it probably always will until something serious is done about it, and only governments can do that. As when we said that Band-Aid was like a stick in plaster, it's a massive, massive problem. $140 million might sound a lot. It's nothing. It's a drop in the ocean. Even if it had made no difference at all, it was an important thing to do, because you have to try. You have to do something. You can't just sit back and let things disintegrate the way things seem to be going right now. You have to try. You have to attempt. Otherwise, we're not particularly good human beings. I think first and foremost, Band-Aid achieved its main goal, and that was to save lives. There's no doubt that we did that. We've also set up a variety of long-term development projects, which we're analysing just now. But I think that the main thing that Band-Aid's left is a little bit of hope. The fact that a bunch of renegades can get together and do something, and do it reasonably well, and leave it open for other people to do the same. And in the past, people have tried to do things like Band-Aid and Live Aid, and for a variety of reasons they haven't happened, or they haven't generated the money or whatever. This time we showed that it could generate a lot of money, and it could make a difference. What initially started as a 6-month project has gone on for 5 years now, and will probably go on for another 4 or 5 years until the long-term projects are finally done with. But no, I can't say I've regretted it. I've gained from it, and I think a lot of other people did.